I used to believe that when you married someone, you became part of their family, fully accepted, just like a daughter. I had been married to Mark for 5 years, and in all that time, I had done everything I could to be the perfect daughter-in-law. Holidays at their house, helping on their farm, cooking and cleaning when we visited. Whatever was needed, I was there. I thought I was proving myself. I thought I was earning my place. I was wrong. I didn't realize how wrong I was until the morning we arrived at the airport. Bags packed, excitement buzzing in the air, ready for our long-awaited family vacation. The whole family was going. My husband Mark, his parents, his 2 brothers and their wives, even the kids. A full-on family trip to a luxurious resort, a perfect escape from the cold winter back home. Or at least, that's what I thought. We were standing in line to check in when my mother-in-law, Linda, handed out the tickets. One by one, she passed them to her precious sons and their wives, cooing over the kids, making sure everyone had their passports. I stood next to Mark, waiting. She didn't hand me anything. At first, I thought she had just missed me by accident. "Linda, I think you forgot mine," I said with a polite smile, holding my hand out. She looked up at me, feigning confusion. "Oh, Ashley, I don't have one for you." I blinked. "What?" She shrugged as if it were no big deal. "I must have forgotten. Oh well. Oh well." The words hung in the air, casual, dismissive, like I was an afterthought. A tight knot formed in my stomach. "But I sent you my passport details when you asked for them. I even reminded you last week." Linda sighed, as if I were the one being difficult. "Well, I suppose it's too late now." Then she flashed me a sweet, almost patronizing smile. "But it's not all bad, dear. You can stay home and watch over the farm while we're gone. You know how much work it is, and this way, you'll be useful." Useful? Like I was an employee. Like I wasn't part of this family at all. I turned to Mark, waiting for him to say something. Anything. Surely my own husband wouldn't stand for this. Surely he'd be just as shocked as I was. But he just rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "Babe, it's just a mistake. I'm sure Mom didn't mean anything by it." Didn't mean anything by it? I looked around at the rest of the family. No one spoke up. No one even looked particularly surprised. My sisters-in-law exchanged glances but said nothing. My brothers-in-law shuffled their feet, pretending to be absorbed in their tickets. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This was planned. They had never intended to include me. They had let me believe I was part of this family, let me contribute, help, and sacrifice for years, only to treat me like a convenient extra, useful when needed, disposable when not. I had 2 choices. I could cry, make a scene, beg Mark to fix this. But deep down, I already knew he wouldn't. If he had any intention of standing up for me, he would have done it by now. So I did the one thing none of them expected. I smiled, a calm, controlled, almost amused smile. "Of course, Linda. You're right. The farm does need looking after." Linda's eyes lit up with satisfaction. "Exactly, dear. You're so understanding." I just nodded and turned on my heel, walking away before anyone could see the anger burning beneath my skin. I didn't cry on the drive home. I didn't scream, didn't throw anything, didn't even call my best friend to vent. I just sat in the eerie quiet of our house, staring out at the sprawling land I had helped take care of for years. The place that had become my second home. The place where I had been treated as nothing more than a free farmhand. As the hours passed, an idea took root. They thought I would stay behind like a good little doormat, tending to their responsibilities while they sipped cocktails on the beach. Oh, they were in for a surprise. I sat in the kitchen for what felt like hours, the silence pressing down on me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, the way Linda had smiled like she had just done me a favor, the way Mark had done nothing. They had played me, and I had let them. I wasn't just upset about the vacation. This was bigger than that. This was about years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated like I was less than the others. And my husband, the man who had vowed to love and support me, had stood there and let it happen. I thought about calling him. But what would I say? Beg him to come back? To choose me, just this once? I was done being the woman who waited for scraps of affection and respect. Instead, I took a deep breath and did the one thing Linda would never expect. I got to work. The farm was big, too big for one person to manage alone. Mark's family had run it for generations, but in the last few years, they'd started hiring workers to help with the daily chores. Linda loved to act like she did everything, but in reality, she barely lifted a finger anymore. And now she expected me to take care of it while they sunned themselves in paradise. I smirked as I scrolled through my phone, pulling up the number of the farm's workers. It took a few calls, but soon enough I had the answer I was hoping for. They hadn't been paid. Apparently Linda had been late on wages for months, always promising the money was coming but never delivering. Some of them had already walked away. The rest were hanging on out of loyalty, or desperation. But I wasn't Linda. I called them back and told them to take the week off. All of them. Are you sure? One of them asked hesitantly. Won't Mrs. Preston be mad? Oh, she'll be furious, I said sweetly. But don't worry, I'll handle it. I could almost hear the relief in their voices as they thanked me. And just like that, the farm was empty. The next step was easier than I expected. Linda had assumed I would stay and manage everything, that I would break my back taking care of her responsibilities, like the good little daughter-in-law I had always been. But I wasn't going to be here when they got back. I packed a suitcase, taking my time, making sure I had everything I needed. When I reached the closet, my eyes landed on Mark's side. His neatly folded shirts, the expensive watch I had bought him for our anniversary, the cologne I had once loved. My fingers hovered over his wedding ring, the one he never wore. I picked it up, turning it over in my palm. 5 years of marriage. 5 years of bending over backward for a man who had never truly chosen me. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. I just dropped the ring onto the dresser and zipped up my bag. I had one last stop to make before I walked away from it all. I sat down at the kitchen table, pen in hand. I could have left a simple note. I'm done. That would have been enough. But Linda and Mark had stolen so much from me over the years. My time, my energy, my self-worth. This time I was going to take something back. I started writing. Dear Linda, since you were so kind to forget my ticket, I figured I'd return the favor. I've taken the liberty of giving the farm workers a well-earned break. The barn still needs cleaning, the animals need feeding, and the repairs you've been ignoring for months, well, they're all yours now. I trust you'll handle it beautifully. After all, you always say how much you love the farm. Oh, and don't worry about me. I've made other plans, ones that don't involve being used as unpaid labor while my husband watches in silence. Enjoy your vacation. You're going to need the rest. Best, Ashley. I folded the letter and placed it right on the kitchen counter, front and center. Then, all I did was making sure the animals had enough food for the week. Without looking back, I grabbed my suitcase and walked out the door. For the first time in years, I wasn't where they expected me to be. As I sat in the window seat of my hotel room, a place Linda had no idea existed, I imagined their arrival. The suitcases rolling into the house. The exhaustion of travel still clinging to them. The smiles that would fade the second they realized something was off. The farm would be quiet. Too quiet. No workers. No one up at dawn to feed the animals, clean the stables, or tend to the land. And no me. I pictured Linda's face as she walked into the house, expecting to see me at the stove, preparing a meal for their grand return. Instead, she'd find my letter. The thought almost made me laugh. They wanted me to be their unpaid farmhand while they vacationed on my dime? They wanted to push me aside like I didn't matter? Fine. Let's see how well they function without me. I hadn't turned my phone on in days, but curiosity got the better of me. When I finally powered it up, my screen exploded with notifications, calls, texts, voicemails, no workers, no one up at dawn to feed the animals, clean the stables, or tend to the land. And no me. I pictured Linda's face as she walked into the house, expecting to see me at the stove, preparing a meal for their grand return. Instead, she'd find my letter. The thought almost made me laugh. They wanted me to be their unpaid farmhand while they vacationed on my dime? They wanted to push me aside like I didn't matter? Fine. Let's see how well they function without me. I hadn't turned my phone on in days, but curiosity got the better of me. When I finally powered it up, my screen exploded with notifications, calls, texts, voicemails. At first, the messages were exactly what I expected. Mark. Hey, babe. I just got home. Where are you? I scrolled further. The confusion didn't last long. Soon, it turned to something else entirely. Linda. Ashley, where are you? The farm is a disaster. Nothing has been done for a week. The place is a mess. You better explain yourself. I smirked. Oh, I was sure it was a disaster. A week with no workers, no maintenance? That farm must have been on the brink of collapse. I kept scrolling. Mark. Babe, you really should have told me you weren't staying at the farm. Mom's really upset. Can you just call me back? Oh, now he was concerned. The messages continued, growing increasingly frantic. Linda. Ashley, this is unacceptable. We trusted you. You abandoned your responsibilities. Responsibilities? Funny. I didn't remember signing a contract to be their free labor. But then I saw the message that really caught my attention. Mark. Ashley, Mom is furious. She said if you don't come home and fix this mess, she doesn't want you in the family anymore. Just apologize so we can move on. I stared at my phone, my pulse steady, my mind calm. Just apologize? So that's what it all came down to. Not once in all these messages had Mark asked if I was okay. Not once had he considered why I left. He just wanted things to go back to normal. For me to take the blame, clean up their mess, and fall in line again. But that wasn't going to happen. I took a slow breath and typed out my response. Me. I won't be coming back, Mark. And I certainly won't be apologizing. It took less than a minute for his next message to come through. Mark, what the hell does that mean? I smiled. Oh, he'd find out soon enough. I wasn't surprised when the next morning I heard a knock on my hotel door. I opened it slowly, and there he was. Mark. He looked furious. Are you kidding me, Ashley? His voice was low, controlled, but his clenched jaw gave him away. Mom is losing her mind. The farm is falling apart. You humiliated us. I raised an eyebrow. I humiliated you? Mark ran a hand through his hair, exasperated. Ashley, you know she didn't mean to forget your ticket. It was an accident. I folded my arms. Right. Just like it was an accident that nobody spoke up when she told me to stay behind? Just like it was an accident that I was expected to work while all of you relaxed? He sighed. Look, I know it wasn't fair, but it's just how things are in this family. I laughed. Not a happy laugh, not an amused one. A sharp, bitter laugh. And that, I said, my voice steady, is exactly why I'm done. Mark's eyes widened. Done? You don't mean that. I do, I said simply. I'm leaving, Mark. A flicker of panic crossed his face. Ashley, be reasonable. Mom is just upset right now. She'll get over it. We can fix this. I shook my head. This isn't about your mom, Mark. It's about you. You let this happen. You let them treat me like an outsider, like a servant. You chose them over me. Every single time. His mouth opened, but no words came out. You know what the worst part is? I continued. I expected Linda to treat me like this. I knew she never truly accepted me, but I never thought you would stand by and watch. Mark swallowed, shifting uncomfortably. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And that was it. That was all I needed to hear. A marriage only works if both people choose each other. And Mark had never truly chosen me. I stepped back, my hand on the door. I hope the farm gets back in order, I said, my voice calm. But it's no longer my problem. His eyes flickered with something. Panic, desperation. But he didn't stop me when I closed the door in his face. Because deep down he knew I was already gone. When the door clicked shut behind Mark, a strange sensation washed over me. It wasn't relief. Not yet. It wasn't satisfaction either. It was finality. I had spent years trying to prove my worth to a family that had never wanted me to belong. And in the end, all it had taken was a forgotten plane ticket to show me exactly where I stood. Or rather, where I didn't stand. I took a deep breath and turned off my phone. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't interested in what Mark or his mother had to say. I wasn't looking for an apology. I wasn't hoping for understanding. I was done. Now I just had to make it official. The next morning, I walked into a lawyer's office. The woman sitting across from me had sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "You want to file for divorce?" she asked, flipping open a notebook. "Yes." The word felt good. Powerful. She nodded. "Irreconcilable differences?" I let out a small laugh. "You could say that." She tapped her pen against the desk. "Any joint property? Shared accounts?" I shook my head. The house belongs to his family. The farm does too. I don't want anything from them." Her eyes flicked up. "Are you sure?" "You've contributed to that place. By law, you may have a right to—" "I don't want it," I said firmly. "I don't want a single thing that ties me to them." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. "All right. We can start the paperwork today." For the first time since I walked out of that airport, I felt light. I was finally taking my life back. I hadn't planned on seeing Mark again. But 2 days after filing for divorce, I received a message from my sister-in-law, Anna. "Anna, you deserve better. I'm sorry for how we let them treat you." I stared at the words, surprised. She had been silent at the airport, just like everyone else. But now, when it was all falling apart, she had something to say? Before I could decide whether to respond, another message popped up. "Anna, Mark is a mess. He didn't think you'd actually leave. He wants to see you." I exhaled slowly. Of course, now he cared. Still, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. Not because I wanted to fix things, but because I needed to hear what he had to say. We met at a quiet cafe, far from his mother's suffocating presence. He looked awful. Dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, restless. He stirred his coffee without drinking it, his hands twitching. "You really filed for divorce?" he said finally. I nodded. "Yes." He exhaled sharply. "Ashley, come on. Isn't this extreme?" I tilted my head. "You tell me, what would you have done if the situation were reversed? If my family had excluded you? If they had forgotten you?" He shifted uncomfortably. "That's not the same." I let out a humorless laugh. "Of course it's not. Because you would never have put up with it. You would have walked away a long time ago. But I stayed. I let it happen. And you let it happen to me." His fingers clenched around his cup. "I didn't think it was that serious," he muttered. I raised an eyebrow. "That's the problem, Mark. It was serious. It was always serious. You just didn't care enough to see it." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And for the first time, I saw something close to regret in his eyes. But regret wasn't enough. I stood up, grabbing my coat. "Goodbye, Mark." He didn't try to stop me. Because deep down, he knew. This time, I wasn't coming back. A week later, as I was finalizing my new living arrangements, an email from Linda popped up in my inbox. Subject: "You ungrateful little." I didn't bother opening it. I simply hit delete. Let her be furious. Let her rant. Let her realize that for the first time in her life, she had lost control over someone. I wasn't her pawn anymore, and I never would be again. I expected Linda to be furious. I expected her rage-filled messages, her dramatic phone calls, her passive-aggressive Facebook posts about ungrateful women who don't respect family. But what I didn't expect was the sheer level of desperation that followed. It started with small things. A message from one of Mark's brothers. Ashley, Mom is really struggling with the farm right now. She thought you'd at least be around to help clean up the mess you left. I had to laugh at that one. A mess I left? Number Linda had spent years assuming I'd always be there to take care of things, to pick up the slack when she let things fall apart. But now, she had to deal with the consequences, and she hated it. I got another text from Anna a few days later. Anna, Linda is completely losing it. The farm is in chaos. The workers won't come back because she refused to pay them. Mark's brothers won't help because they have their own lives. She's trying to fix everything herself, but it's a disaster. I smirked as I read the message. Karma was settling in nicely. For years, Linda had expected me to be the silent workhorse of the family. She had taken me for granted. And now that I was gone, she was drowning. The next evening, I received a call from an unknown number. I ignored it at first. But when it rang again, something told me to pick up. I sighed, pressing the answer button. Hello? A familiar voice came through. Ashley. It was Mark. I leaned back in my chair, already exhausted by the conversation I knew was coming. What do you want, Mark? He hesitated. I need to see you. Can we meet? I almost laughed. You don't get to ask that anymore. Ash, please. His voice was softer now. I know things got messy, but can we just talk? I paused, considering. I didn't owe him anything. Not anymore. But something told me this was important. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. I met him at a small diner on the outskirts of town. Neutral ground. When I walked in, he was already there, looking tired, disheveled, and not at all like the confident man I once married. He looked up, relief flashing across his face. Hey. I didn't sit. Make this quick. He sighed. Look, I know I messed up. I crossed my arms. Understatement of the year. He flinched but continued. The farm is falling apart. Mom is in way over her head. She thought she could handle it all without you, but... He shook his head. She can't. I stared at him, waiting for him to get to the point. Mark swallowed hard. She needs help, Ashley. I let out a slow breath. And? He looked at me like I was supposed to understand, like I was supposed to care. Come back, he said quietly. I blinked. Come back? He nodded. Not as my wife. I get that's over, but as part of the family. I actually laughed, out loud. Are you serious? I asked, shaking my head. After everything? After the way she treated me? You think I'd ever come back? Mark rubbed his forehead. Ashley, this is bigger than us. The farm... I cut him off. The farm is not my responsibility. Not anymore. He looked desperate now. But she's struggling. She made a mistake, but... I held up a hand. No, Mark, she didn't make a mistake. She made a choice. She chose to exclude me. She chose to treat me like I was nothing. And now she has to live with that. His jaw clenched. So that's it? You're just walking away? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I already did. I grabbed my bag and turned toward the door. This time, he didn't try to stop me, because he finally understood. I was never coming back. 2 days later, I received an email from Linda. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Subject: I hope you're happy. I clicked on it and skimmed the contents. It was long, too long, but the main message was clear. She blamed me for the workers quitting, blamed me for Mark being miserable, blamed me for not being a good wife. And my favorite part? She actually demanded that I come back to fix the damage I caused. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Then I did something I should have done a long time ago. I blocked her. And just like that, the last thread connecting me to them was gone. For the first time in years, I woke up feeling free. No texts from Linda demanding favors, no calls from Mark making excuses, no last-minute requests to drop everything for someone else's needs. Just silence. And it was the most peaceful silence I had ever experienced. I stretched, letting the morning sun filter through my curtains, and reached for my coffee. A slow smile crept across my face as I scrolled through my emails. Not a single one from Mark or his family, because they were gone. Blocked, removed, erased from my life. And I had never felt lighter. I spent the next few weeks focusing on myself, something I hadn't done in years. I found a new apartment. Something small, cozy, and completely mine. I went back to painting, something I had loved before I got married but had let fall to the side. I reconnected with old friends, people I had lost touch with because I was too busy being the perfect wife and daughter-in-law. And most importantly, I started dreaming again. For so long, my life had revolved around Mark's family, their needs, their expectations. Before that, it was the same with my own family. That contact is no longer there. Now, for the first time, I was asking myself what I wanted. And the answer? I wanted to travel. Not just a week-long vacation. Not just a quick getaway. I wanted to see the world. And nothing was stopping me anymore. One evening, as I was packing up my old belongings, I found a dusty box tucked in the back of my closet. Curious, I pulled it out and opened the lid. Inside were pieces of my past. Old anniversary cards from Mark, a wedding photo, little trinkets that had once meant something. For a moment, I just stared at them. Then, without hesitation, I took the entire box and dumped it in the trash. No second thoughts. No nostalgia. No regret. Because I wasn't that woman anymore. I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me. I wasn't begging for a place in a family that didn't want me. I wasn't sacrificing my happiness for people who only saw me as useful. I was done. A few days before I was set to leave for my trip, my phone buzzed with an unexpected message. Anna, Mark's sister. I hesitated, debating whether to ignore it, but something told me to read it. Anna, I just wanted to say that I admire what you did. I should have spoken up at the airport, but I didn't. I regret it. I frowned, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Before I could decide how to respond, another message popped up. Anna, for what it's worth, you were right. Mom never saw you as family. And Mark? He never really fought for you, did he? I swallowed, a strange mix of emotions stirring inside me. No, he hadn't. And that was the real tragedy of our marriage. But I wasn't sad about it anymore. I typed back a short reply. Me. I appreciate your message, Anna. I really do. But I've moved on. I hope one day you do too. I didn't wait for a response, because I knew that whatever she said next, it didn't matter anymore. The day I left for the airport, there was no dramatic send-off. No goodbyes. Just me, my suitcase, and the open road ahead. As I stood in the terminal, waiting for my flight, I thought back to that moment at the airport with Linda. How she had looked me in the eyes and dismissed me like I was nothing. How no one had spoken up. How I had walked away, feeling like I had lost something. But now I realized I had gained everything. Because leaving them wasn't a loss. It was the best decision I had ever made. I took a deep breath, letting the past slip away like dust in the wind. And as my flight was called, I picked up my bag, stepped forward, and never looked back.
My husband abandoned me to attend the luxury wedding of his brother and his wealthy fiancée while I was 9 months pregnant. Stop whiling, you have managed. I filed for divorce. Then I found out his brother's finance was actually, my name's Grace, and I used to think I had it all figured out. a great job as head of marketing, a loving husband William, and a comfortable life. I was paying off our mortgage with my own salary, feeling pretty damn proud of myself for being financially independent. Family was a big part of our lives too. William had a younger brother Tom, and their mom Lily was always around. Their dad had passed away years ago, so the boys made it a point to look after her. I found it touching, honestly. It made me love William even more, seeing how he cared for his family. Lily seemed to like me well enough at first. We'd chat over coffee during family gatherings, and she'd always ask about my work. "Willie Amading," she'd say, nodding approvingly. "Sounds important." It felt good to have her approval. I wanted to fit in with William's family, to be part of their tight-knit group. Our first few years of marriage were filled with weekend barbecues, holiday dinners, and impromptu game nights with the extended family. I remember one Thanksgiving, all of us crammed around Lily's dining table, laughing and talking over each other. "Pass the gravy, will you?" William's uncle bellowed from the end of the table. "You've had enough gravy, old man?" Lily shot back, but she was grinning as she handed over the boat. I looked around the table, taking in the familiar faces, feeling a sense of belonging. This was my family now too. The first cracks started to show during a New Year's Eve party at Lily's house. I was in the kitchen, refilling my glass of wine, when I overheard Lily talking to William and Tom in the living room. "Did you see what Carol's wearing?" Lily snickered. "That dress must have cost all of $5. I froze, my hand on the bottle. Carol was William's cousin, a single mom struggling to make ends meet. "I'm just saying," Lily continued, her voice dripping with disdain. "Some people should know their limits. Don't try to play with the big boys if you can't keep up." I felt my cheeks burn with secondhand embarrassment. This wasn't the warm, welcoming family I thought I knew. I peeked around the corner, watching as Lily leaned in conspiratorially to her sons, all three of them giggling like schoolchildren. As time went on, I couldn't ignore the growing unease I felt around Lily. What I'd initially brushed off as harmless teasing started to look a lot more like meanness. And it wasn't just Carol who was in her crosshairs. At every family gathering, Lily would huddle with William and Tom, their heads close together as they whispered and snickered. Their eyes would dart around the room, landing on various relatives and friends before they'd burst into muffled laughter. One Easter Sunday I couldn't take it anymore. Lily was holding court in the living room, William and Tom flanking her like loyal subjects. "Did you see Janet's new car?" Lily was saying, her voice low but not low enough. "Probably got it from the buy here pay here lot. I bet she'll be paying it off until she's 80. Before I knew what I was doing, I was on my feet, marching over to Lily's little group. "Hey," I said, my voice sharper than I'd intended. "Don't you think that's a bit much? Janet can probably hear you." The room went silent. Lily's eyes narrowed as she looked up at me. Well, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Looks like we've offended your delicate sensibilities, Grace." William and Tom exchanged uncomfortable glances. "I just think it's rude," I pressed on, my heart pounding. "Why do you always have to put people down?" Lily's fake smile disappeared. "If you don't like it, you don't have to listen. Why don't you go sit somewhere else?" I felt like I'd been slapped. I looked at William, expecting him to back me up, but he just stared at the floor. "Fine," I said, my voice tight. "I will." From that day on, family gatherings became a special kind of hell. I'd sit alone nursing a drink while William stuck to his mother's side like glue. He'd throw me apologetic glances now and then, but he never came to sit with me. "Why don't you ever stand up to her?" I asked him one night after a particularly awful dinner. William sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She's my mother, Grace. What do you want me to do? I want you to tell her she's being cruel. I want you to have my back." But he never did. And slowly I started finding reasons not to go to these family events. Work emergencies, migraines, anything to avoid the cold stares and whispered insults. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get more complicated, life threw me another curveball. I was pregnant. I stared at the little plastic stick in my bathroom, my heart racing. 2 pink lines, clear as day. "William," I called out, my voice shaky. "Can you come here?" He appeared in the doorway, his face concerned. "What's wrong?" Wordlessly I held out the test. His eyes widened as he took it from me. He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment I felt like maybe everything would be okay. Maybe this baby would bring us closer together, heal the rifts that had been growing between us. But life had other plans. The pregnancy was rough from the start. Constant nausea, dizziness, and a perpetual threat of miscarriage kept me on edge. My doctor put me on bed rest, which meant working remotely. As the weeks went by, my condition worsened. My eyesight started to deteriorate rapidly, a rare complication that my doctor said could be temporary but might also be permanent. Squinting at my laptop became impossible. With a heavy heart, I had to quit my job. I needed William more than ever, but he seemed to be drifting away. He'd come home late from work, citing extra projects or drinks with colleagues. More often than not, I'd fall asleep alone, the echo of the front door closing jolting me awake in the middle of the night. The day of my C-section arrived faster than I expected. My eyesight had worsened to the point where the doctors insisted on the procedure. Natural birth was just too risky. As I lay on the cold operating table, my heart raced with a mix of excitement and fear. "Where's William?" I asked the nurse, my voice trembling. She gave me a sympathetic smile. "Your husband's in the waiting room, dear. He said he'd rather stay there." The surgery went smoothly, and soon I heard the most beautiful sound, my son's first cry. As they placed him on my chest, I felt a rush of love so intense it took my breath away. Later, in the recovery room, William finally showed up. His face was a mask of discomfort and annoyance. "Look, Grace, I gotta say something. This whole thing? It's not right. I blinked, confused. What do you mean? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. Normal women give birth on their own, without all this surgery crap. And men? We're not supposed to be here for this. We should be meeting our wives and kids at home, like in the old days. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. William, I couldn't risk. Save it. He cut me off. I'm heading home. This place gives me the creeps. The next few weeks were a blur of sleepless nights and endless feedings. William was rarely home, and when he was, he contributed nothing to our son's care. Instead, he'd complain constantly. Can't you shut him up? He'd growl as our baby cried in the middle of the night. I'm trying, I'd say, exhaustion weighing heavily on me. He's teething, William. It hurts him. But William had no patience for it. All you do is focus on the kid. What about me? What about our sex life? I'd stare at him in disbelief. Here I was running on 2 hours of sleep, still recovering from major surgery, and he was worried about sex. As the weeks turned into months, William's dissatisfaction grew. One evening, as I was trying to soothe our fussy 6-month-old, he dropped a bombshell. You need to go back to work, he said flatly. I turned to him, shock written all over my face. What? But the baby? We'll hire a nanny, he interrupted. We can't keep living like this, Grace. We need the money. I wanted to argue, to tell him that our son needed me, that I wasn't ready. But the determined look in his eyes told me it was pointless. So, with a heavy heart, I started job hunting. Finding work with my compromised vision wasn't easy. I eventually landed a position at a smaller company, but the pay was less than what I'd earned before. When I told William, his reaction was predictably negative. That's it? He scoffed. We're paying a nanny for this? I felt tears pricking at my eyes. I'm doing my best, William. It's not easy with my eyesight. Excuses, he muttered, walking away. And so began my new reality, rushing to work each morning, guilt gnawing at me as I left my baby with the nanny. Struggling through the day with my limited vision, then coming home to a resentful husband and a child who needed me. Time flew by in a haze of work, childcare, and mounting tension at home. Before I knew it, 2 years had passed since my son's birth. Despite the challenges, I loved him fiercely, and found joy in his every milestone. Family gatherings remained a source of stress, particularly due to Lily's behavior. She'd sweep in, playing the doting grandmother for show, but her indifference was palpable. Come to Grandma, she'd coo, arms outstretched to my son, but he'd cling to me, turning his face away from this unfamiliar woman. Lily's face would darken with anger. What have you been telling him about me? She'd hiss. You're turning my own grandson against me. I'd try to explain, my voice tired. He just doesn't know you well, Lily. If you visited more often, don't you dare blame this on me, she'd snap, stomping off to complain to William. Then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, my world tilted on its axis once again. I stared at the pregnancy test in my hand, my heart racing. Positive. I was pregnant again. Fear gripped me. My first pregnancy had been so difficult, my health so compromised. Could my body handle another? But as I calculated the weeks, I realized I was already well into the one-stone trimester. The decision, it seemed, had been made for me. With shaking hands, I called William at work. What is it? He answered, his tone impatient. William, I'm pregnant. There was a long pause. Then, look, Grace, I'm busy. We'll talk later. Just don't quit your job. All right? We can't afford that. The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, feeling more alone than ever. Thankfully, this pregnancy proved easier than my first. My morning sickness was manageable, and my vision remained stable. I continued working, determined to provide for my growing family. But as my belly swelled, the distance between William and me seemed to grow exponentially. He spent more and more time at his mother's house, often not coming home until late at night. One evening, as I struggled to put our son to bed while balancing my swollen belly, William walked in. Hey, I said, hopeful for some help. Can you read him a story? I'm exhausted. William glanced at us, then at his watch. Can't. I promised Mom I'd help her move some furniture. Don't wait up. As the door closed behind him, I felt a tear slide down my cheek. I looked at my son, his big eyes staring up at me trustingly, and at my rounded belly, home to a child I already loved fiercely. As my 7th month of pregnancy rolled around, I found myself preparing for Thanksgiving. Guests started arriving in the afternoon. My parents came early, my mom immediately rolling up her sleeves to help in the kitchen. Friends and relatives trickled in, filling our home with chatter and laughter. Just as I was about to serve dinner, the doorbell rang. It was Tom, William's younger brother, and to everyone's surprise, he had a woman with him. Everyone, this is Melissa, Tom announced, beaming. My fiancée. The room fell silent for a moment before erupting in congratulations. I plastered on a smile, trying to ignore the twinge of jealousy at the way William's eyes lit up at the sight of his brother's happiness. Lily arrived shortly after, her eyes widening as she took in Melissa. Well, she said, her voice dripping with approval. Aren't you a sight for sore eyes? Throughout dinner, Lily fawned over Melissa, peppering her with questions and hanging on her every word. I tried to focus on being a good hostess, but I couldn't help overhearing their conversation. So Melissa, Lily said loudly, ensuring everyone could hear. Tom tells me you're a manager at National Bank. How prestigious. Melissa nodded, looking slightly uncomfortable. Yes, I've been there for about 5 years now, Lily beamed. You must be doing very well for yourself, unlike some people who can only pop out babies and breed poverty, she added, throwing a pointed look in my direction. I felt my cheeks burn with humiliation. My mother tensed beside me, ready to speak up, but I placed a hand on her arm, silently pleading with her not to make a scene. You know, Lily continued, her voice sickeningly sweet, Melissa here makes $15,000 a month. Now that's the kind of daughter-in-law I've always dreamed of. Smart, beautiful, successful. Tears pricked at my eyes as I remembered the years I'd spent supporting our family, paying the mortgage, building a career I was proud of. All of that seemed forgotten now. I think we should continue this lovely evening somewhere more suitable, Lily announced, standing up. Melissa dear, why don't we all go to that new restaurant downtown? My treat, of course. Before I could process what was happening, Lily, William, Tom, and Melissa were heading for the door. William didn't even glance back at me as they left. The remaining guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, the festive mood thoroughly ruined. One by one they made their excuses and left, leaving only my parents behind. They offered to help me but I refused, saying that they needed to rest themselves. Finally alone, I sank onto the couch and let the tears flow freely. Hours passed as I sobbed, my hand resting on my swollen belly, wondering how my life had come to this. It was nearly dawn when I heard the front door open. William stumbled in, reeking of alcohol and cigarette smoke. He didn't say a word as he made his way to the bedroom. With shaking hands I picked up my phone and opened social media. There they were, Lily, William, Tom, and Melissa, grinning for selfies at an expensive nightclub. The caption read, "Best Thanksgiving ever with my real family." As my due date approached I felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The doctors had scheduled my C-section, insisting it was the safest option given that it had been less than 3 years since my last one. I tried to focus on preparing for our new arrival, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off with William. One chilly winter afternoon, I found him unpacking bags full of summer clothes. "What's all this?" I asked, puzzled. William shrugged, barely meeting my eyes. "Just saw a good sale. Thought I'd update my wardrobe." It didn't make sense, but with the impending birth occupying my thoughts, I pushed my suspicions aside. I'd been meticulously saving money in a separate account, determined to take a couple of months off work to recover and bond with the new baby. My workplace had approved 2 months of unpaid leave, which was a relief. I'd set aside enough for the mortgage, bills, and even a babysitter for our 3-year-old. For once I felt prepared. 3 days before my scheduled C-section, chaos erupted. I was resting on the couch when William burst through the door, Lily hot on his heels. "Hurry up!" Lily barked as William rushed to our bedroom. I struggled to my feet, waddling after them. William was throwing clothes into a suitcase, the summer clothes he'd bought. "William," I said, my voice rising with panic. "What are you doing?" He barely glanced at me. "Tom's getting married in Hawaii. We're all going." The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. "What? But my C-section is in 3 days. Who's going to take care of our son?" William zipped up his suitcase, finally meeting my gaze with cold indifference. "You'll manage. You always do." Before I could respond he brushed past me, Lily, ushering him out. The door slammed, leaving me in stunned silence. Reality crashed over me like a tidal wave. I scrambled for my phone, hands shaking as I checked our joint account. Empty. All the money I'd saved, gone. With trembling fingers, I dialed William's number. He answered on the final ring. "What?" he snapped. "The money," I choked out. "All our savings. Where is it?" There was a pause, then a cold laugh. "We needed it for Tom's wedding gift." "Don't be so greedy, Grace." The line went dead. A sharp pain lanced through my abdomen. I looked down in horror to see a puddle forming at my feet. My water had broken. Panic seized me. I couldn't go into labor now. The risk to my previous C-section scar was too great. With one hand on my belly and the other clutching my phone, I called emergency services. The hospital was chaos, doctors shouting, machines beeping. I woke hours later to the gentle beeping of monitors. My mother's tear-stained face swam into view. "Grace," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "You're okay. The baby's okay." Slowly the fog lifted. I'd nearly died. My baby had nearly died, but we'd made it. 3 days after the emergency C-section, I was feeling surprisingly strong, both physically and emotionally. The doctors were pleased with my recovery, and gave me the green light to go home. William hadn't called once since he'd left for Hawaii. Not to check if I was alive, not to ask about his new son. In that moment, I knew our marriage was over. I called my parents and asked to stay with them for a while. Their response was immediate and supportive. My parents doted on both boys, giving me time to rest and recover. I started researching divorce lawyers and gathering documentation of our finances. Then, exactly a week after I'd left the hospital, my phone rang. William's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail twice before finally answering on the third call. "Where the hell are you? Why aren't you at home?" William's voice was a mixture of anger and confusion. I took a deep breath. "I'm at my parents', William, with both of our sons. I've filed for divorce." There was a moment of stunned silence, then a bark of laughter. "Divorce? Are you kidding me? After everything I've done for you? Everything you've done?" I felt a surge of anger. "You mean like abandoning me right before I gave birth? Or stealing all our savings?" "Oh, get over it," he scoffed. "I'll pay you back, no problem. In fact, I don't even want to see you again. You know why? Because I'm going to be rich." He launched into a tirade about how Tom's new wife had offered him a job as her deputy at the bank, how they were going to start their own financial company, how she was going to make them all wealthy beyond their wildest dreams. "You never believed in me, Grace," he spat. "You always shot down my ideas, always held me back. Well, guess what? I'm free now. And you're just a loser who can't see potential when it's right in front of her." The divorce proceedings moved quickly. To my surprise, William didn't contest anything. He returned the money he'd taken from our accounts and agreed to pay alimony. When I came to the house, I had years of mortgage statements proving I'd been the one making payments. The judge awarded it to me without hesitation. The day I returned to my house with the boys, William was there, packing up the last of his things. He sneered as I walked in, the baby in my arms and our toddler holding my hand. "Enjoy this dump while you can," he said, hefting a box. "I'll be in a mansion soon, swimming in cash. You'll see what you missed out on." As he walked out the door, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The house suddenly felt bigger, brighter. A year and a half had passed since the divorce. Life had settled into a new normal for me and my boys. I'd returned to work, finding a balance between my career and motherhood. It wasn't always easy, but we were happy, healthy, and thriving. One ordinary Tuesday, my phone buzzed with a news alert. As I read the headline, my jaw dropped. Local banker exposed as fraud leaves family in ruins. The article detailed a shocking scandal. Melissa, Tom's wife, had been running an elaborate con. She'd convinced William, Tom, and Lily to take out massive loans to fund a non-existent financial company. They'd even mortgaged Lily's house, pouring every penny they had into this imaginary venture. But Melissa wasn't a banker at all. The office she'd shown them was a short-term rental, a prop in her elaborate scheme. She'd disappeared with $1 million, leaving behind a trail of forged documents and broken dreams. To make matters worse, I discovered they'd taken out an additional loan to fund Tom and Melissa's lavish Hawaiian wedding, the very event William had abandoned us for. As I read on, a mix of emotions washed over me. Shock, confusion, and, I'll admit, a twinge of satisfaction. The consequences were severe. Unable to repay their debts, they lost everything. Lily's house, their cars, even their personal belongings, all seized by creditors. They were left with nothing but mountains of debt. I heard through the grapevine that Lily had been forced to take a job as a cashier, just to afford a tiny apartment and groceries. William and Tom were in similar straits, their dreams of wealth and success shattered. I was beyond grateful that I divorced William when I did. My children and I were safe, unaffected by the financial disaster that had befallen my ex-husband's family. Just when I thought I'd put it all behind me, my phone rang. Lily's number flashed on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Grace?" Lily's voice was small, a far cry from her usual imperious tone. We need your help." She launched into a plea, asking if they could stay with us. "The children need their father and grandmother," she insisted. "You can't leave family in trouble." I took a deep breath, memories flooding back of Thanksgiving humiliation, of being abandoned before my C-section, of the countless times they'd belittled and dismissed me. "Family?" I said, my voice steady. "You weren't concerned about family when you left me alone, pregnant and in danger. You weren't concerned about family when you stole my savings. You weren't concerned about family when you called me a loser." Lily started to protest, but I cut her off. "I'm sorry you're in this situation, Lily, but I'm not responsible for the choices you, William, and Tom made. My priority is my children, and I won't expose them to the chaos you've created. Please don't contact me again." I hung up, then immediately blocked her number. As I sat down the phone, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was done, truly done.